All right, thanks everybody for coming to the EndNote Web Workshop. I'm Jesse Garrison, I'm a librarian here at Parks. And has anyone actually been using EndNote in some capacity before? It's fairly new to a lot of you. All right, so EndNote is what we call a bibliographic manager or bibliography manager, reference manager, citation manager. All these terms are used kind of interchangeably. The whole point is for you to be able to keep track of the things you're citing for your research, and then use them in, say, Word, kind of in an automated fashion to kind of help you save some time as you're working with this. So it's the best to get started using it before you start your writing process so that you can have all this stuff ready to go and all you have to worry about is the actual writing. A couple terminology things. EndNote is a fairly old system. Like the current, it has a full software version you can buy. It's available through the bookstore here. It's at a fairly significant discount, but it is still like $90. It has more features than what the web version we'll be talking about today uses, but a lot of times if you see something that's like EndNote or EndNote X8, because we're on the 18th version, and for some reason they used the Roman numeral for the 10, but not, I don't know. Anyway, that's a bigger thing, and we don't really go into that too much here. If you have specific questions about it, I can try to answer that as well, but we're mostly focusing on the web version here. Because they do have a free to everybody web interface that anybody can use. Because of this library, this university's subscription to a particular database called Web of Science, we get some added features. But because of the different versions of things that people might have access to, the terminology is a little wonky. So I usually refer to it as EndNote Web. That's actually the old name for it. The free version is usually called EndNote Basic. So in their own internal web pages, you might see that referred to, but other websites might still refer to it as EndNote Web or EndNote Online. So these are all the same thing. It's just what you choose for terminology. I call it EndNote Web because this website still works, the myendnoteweb.com. So yeah, what we're going to be doing today is 3 basic tasks that you might use EndNote Web for. Collecting and sorting reference information. So you're doing research, you're looking up papers in different websites, databases, anything. Collecting that information and storing it in your library. How to organize the information once you have it there. And then how to actually use it in Microsoft Word using a plugin that's freely available that lets you connect to your library and cite things in your library automatically. And with that, I'll just kind of jump right in. So if you're signed into EndNote, it should look something like this. You have just my references. I've cleared out mine because I actually don't do a lot of writing myself, but I just know how to use it for the purposes of this stuff. So once you get started, you'll have more things listed here. The main thing is we're going to be starting with collect. Well, I'll go over a couple things there first. So to get information into EndNote, you can go to the new reference option and just type it in manually. Like if you have a citation, you have like a book or something in front of you that you want to cite, you can work through it and just type stuff in by yourself without worrying about where to get it otherwise. That is slow. Another option is the online search feature. I'm not a big fan of this, but it does let you pick from a large selection of different systems that are out there. I'm going to just go to PubMed real quick. Does everyone know what PubMed is? Yeah? All right, so you can connect to that and do some searches here. Like if I wanted to look up, I don't know, bear attacks. Okay. It might take a while, but it does find things. The issue that I have with this is that it's not very easy to then further sort this list. Like I found 95 results here, but I could easily have found 1,000 or more. And there's not any tools built into this to let you narrow that down. But you could just very easily click some of these and then add it to your library. So I did that, and just like that, I have things in my library. So that can be useful if you're just looking for some basic stuff and don't really care about searching, or if you know very specifically what you're looking for, that might be pretty quick because it's already in the EndNote system. But it's because so many of the other database websites you can go to directly are the interface to do the searches is more powerful, and just it's a lot easier to do complicated searches there. The other option to how to collect that's import references is actually something I'll come back to, but it's you've gone to a website, you've downloaded a file with the citation information, and then you upload it manually. Hopefully, for many of you, the manual process won't be necessary very often, but we'll walk through it anyway. Before we do that, I'm going to show you the download section here, though. These computers, the library's computers in this room at least, already have this stuff downloaded, so you don't have to do it yourself. But if you're using your own laptop, say, you might have to do this process. Downloads, cite while you write is what you want. That's what lets Word talk to your EndNote account. And just download Windows or Mac, depending on which one you want, and then install it. The Windows version comes with an additional thing that's an export helper, I think is what it's called, that will attempt, when you download the types of citation files that we're going to be dealing with, it will automatically try to then upload it to your system, your EndNote library. Mac versions do not have that, so if you need to download a file from a database, you're going to have to use the manual process. Like I said, I'll still walk through that, but just know that that's a difference between Windows and Mac for the time being. Mac does not have that automatic upload. So from there, we're just going to jump right into actually importing stuff from these external sites. I'm going to start with Google Scholar because they have recently added a feature that I think is amazing. Well, it's not amazing. It's something that should have been there all along, but it's something that's new for Google Scholar. I've already signed into my Google account, so this is something you have to be signed in to do, I think. But if you do a search for, say, so you do a search, you get a bunch of stuff you want to look at. What you can do is select things using this little star. This is something that's new. I'm a big fan of it. And it puts stuff in your library, which allows you to multi-select. Google Scholar did not used to let you multi-select, so you had to do each item individually when you did a search. Another thing to look at is in your settings. So the little pancake icon in the upper left, you should have a settings option. And then at the bottom here, you have Bibliography Manager. You can set that to be, say, EndNote. So now all of my search results, or the item results, I have an import to EndNote link right there. So if you're looking at just your general search results and you find one thing you want, there's an option just to click a button and do it. So this one's not in my library yet because the star is empty. I'm going to go and click on that. It downloads a file, and on some of your computers it should open up a thing asking, do you want to open this with something or other export helper? Does anyone get that? No? How do I get the link?
Yeah.
All right, so you go to the icon up here, the stacked lines,
Okay.
settings,
Okay.
and then at the bottom you have Bibliography Manager. All right, and then select, say EndNote. Okay. All right, so because this computer apparently doesn't have the thing I'm talking about, I'm going to go ahead and walk through the manual process. If you go back to your EndNote library, go to Collect, Import References. You have to tell it three things: what file you're looking at, what type of file it is, and where you want to put it. So under File, I would have to select that. That should go to my Downloads folder. Okay, so I've got scholar.enw. The import option is how I tell it what type of file this is. It's a very long list. Most of them are actually the same types of files, but I usually use the Select Favorites option here to make that list much smaller on a day-to-day basis. This .enw file is going to be what you use for the EndNote import option. Copy that to Favorites. And now I have it there, so when I close the window, the list is just that. There are a couple other options I usually have people do while they're at it. One of them is refman RIS, because the .ris file type is another one that we use a lot when we're dealing with this information. And if you're in a field that uses PubMed, it has its own thing as well. Honestly, these three import options will serve just fine for the majority of what you find on a daily basis. Just EndNote for the ENW, refman RIS for RIS files, and then the PubMed for things specifically from PubMed. All right, so this was EndNote, so I select that option. And then I tell it where to put it. I'm just going to drop it into unfiled again. And it should tell me I have one reference imported. Anybody have problems with that, or?
I got two.
Okay. All right, so to jump back into Google Scholar, to go back to my library, the fact that it now allows me to do multi-select, instead of clicking on the import to EndNote link, I click on the little down arrow button above the things, and that gives me the option of what to select as well. So I'm going to select EndNote again. It's going to download a second file, and it's just the same process. I choose that file, select EndNote, and select where I want to put it. And because it allowed me to multi-select, I can do two things at once.
How did you get the squares on Google Scholar instead of the star?
After I added them with the star, I went to my library up here. Hmm? Okay, yeah. All right, so if you're at your search results, oh shoot. If you're at the full search results, you should just have the little star icon at the left side. All right. Other than the person who just arrived, is everyone caught up with that? Any questions? Okay. All right, so Google Scholar, it's nice that they finally added the option to have like a full list of things to select from. Before it was just you had to do everything individually. So this made things a lot easier for that. I know a lot of people use Google Scholar, so it's nice that they added that feature. All right, so then I'm going to start the University Library website, so if people want to browse to that. And we'll get to different databases to show how they interact with this stuff. So the little green box above Quick Search is article indexes and databases. And I'm going to choose Web of Science to begin with. So that just, how I got there was I went to the full articles and databases list, clicked on the W to sort by alphabet, and then just clicked on Web of Science. Now Web of Science is owned by the same company that owns EndNote, so it's a very direct interface between the two. I usually recommend people sign in on that site as well. It should, I don't know if they've changed this because I've had my account for forever now, but you should be able to sign in with the same login information as you used before. And what did I change it to? All right, so now in the upper right, it has my name showing. So it shows that I've signed in. And then you just do another search. So helps if I type. All right, so you click, there should be a little sign in button up at the top, and then there's an option to sign in. For the people who are using my account, it's the same account information I used before, so this one. Again, once you get your own account set up, you should be able to use the same information there as you do for your own EndNote account. All right. Okay, so you've got some results here, the same sort of thing. You can multi-select, which is always nice. But now there's, above your search results, there's just a line for Save to EndNote Online. So I click on that. It gives me the option of whether or not I want to include the abstracts. I'm going to say yes. Click Send. This is taking, okay, there we go. It said record sent. And now it'll refresh it, and anything that I have in my EndNote library will have this little icon here. So it's nice that if you're looking at, if you're in Web of Science, you're doing your own searches, it'll show you what you've already collected.
Cool.
Yeah.
When you're doing the multi-select, do you have a librarian rule, like send them to EndNote every page or every?
Most of these systems these days will allow you to select and then move on to the next page. I mean, I usually try to do it at the very least every new search I do. Like if I'm changing search results in any way, I'll send it before I move on. But I mean, just however often you feel like doing it. I mean, it took a little bit of time there for it to send it, but it's still, once you're signed in, it's not like you have to do a lot of stuff. It's just you click on it, you choose if you want abstract or not, and send it. All right, so any questions on Web of Science? It's pretty straightforward. Okay. Why isn't my mouse working? My mouse may have just died. Okay, thank you. Double A. Okay, so while I'm waiting on that, all right, so one that we can use is any EBSCO brand databases. We have a lot of EBSCO databases at this university, so that's useful. So if you want to go back to the article indexes and databases page from the library website, kind of walk around so I can see what people are doing. So like this. The page we linked to the Web of Science from is the one I'm interested in. So if you go to the library website and click on the green banner, this page.
Here?
Yeah. And then click on, okay, wait, I got a battery. Hopefully this will work. Thank you, Lori. There we go. Okay. So article indexes and databases. I'm just going to go to Academic Search Complete because that's a very broad subject database. And do another search. This one also lets you do multi-select, but it looks a little different from some other databases. You can click on the little blue folder on the right side of any item you want. And that's sort of like adding it to the Google Scholar library. It just adds it to the folder section that's linked up at the very top of the screen. So once you've selected a couple items, you can click there to see what all you've put in the folder. And then again, it's a similar thing. Click the ones you want. Click Export. There is a direct export to EndNote Web option. It is currently broken. Oh, this. Put it in the folder? Okay. All right, so you get your search results. You click on the little blue folder icon on the right side of each item that you want. When it changes to a yellow folder icon, then that item's been added. Then once you found everything you want, you go to the folder icon at the very top. Okay. All right, so again, select the things you want, click Export. Hopefully the direct export will work eventually again. When it does work, it's very similar to how the Web of Science thing worked. You click on it and it should just send it straight over. It might ask you the first time to provide your login information again. But because that is currently not working, I think it's something to do with the way the EndNote web login screen has changed in the last month or so. So in general, if you're at an EBSCO database, for the time being, you want to use this direct export in RAS format. Okay, this one apparently is triggering the this icon. Does everyone see this if you're on a library computer? This is the icon for the export helper I mentioned earlier. So you should be able to sign in. And then let's see what I should change it to. And then it returns that it's exported into myendnote.com. Again, if you don't have the program that did this for us automatically, the manual process I went through earlier, just make sure you select for this file type, the RIS file type, you select that option from the import options, but it should work just fine. Does anybody have any specific databases that aren't of the type that we've already looked at that you want to go over? No? Okay, well, if you ever have problems finding how to get stuff into your EndNote library, let me know. My email address is jesse@iastate, and I'll help you figure it out. So moving on from there, we'll move on to organization. If you go back to your EndNote account, and you go to My References, you see on the list here, there's All My References shows everything that's been downloaded into your system. Unfiled is anything you haven't done anything else with yet. But there's also groups. I see somebody who already knows how to make these groups. There's just a way for you to sort things. So if you're working on multiple projects, you want to keep the references separate. It lets you have a flat folder structure. You can't nest folders, unfortunately. But it lets you have things organized in a way that you can deal with just one set of references. It's just an organizational aid. You do that by either you can select things you want to put in a group, click this Add to Group drop-down above your list, select New Group, and then just name it. It will create that group and move those things into it. They'll still show up in All My References, but now since I've put them in a group, they're no longer in unfiled.
But one source can't be in two groups.
They can. You can. You always want to do that by selecting All My References and selecting from there to move it to other things. There is a way to track to see if there are duplicates somewhere in your library. I'll show that real quick. I believe that's under Organize. Yeah, there's a Find Duplicates option. I don't have anything currently. Let me redo one of these. All right, so I've uploaded the same list of references twice. So if I refresh this duplicates page, it should find a couple things. It might still be working. Oh, there we go. There. So it automatically shows everything that it thinks is a duplicate, and it will check all but one version of that. So if I did the same thing again and I had 3 copies of each thing, 2 copies of each would be checked. Because that just lets me then just go up to delete and click delete, and it only does the duplicates, not the original. If you're doing searches in multiple databases, like if you've done something in Google Scholar and PubMed and Web of Science, and you've happened to have gotten the same thing multiple times, because of the ways that the different databases format the information that's within them, it's possible that it wouldn't always find these duplicates. So you kind of have to be vigilant on that respect, because this tool is not perfect, but that is something to keep in mind. All right, so that's duplicates. Another thing about groups is that you are able to work with other people. So under Manage My Groups, in that same Organize section, you can say, I want to share this group with people. And then you actually have to say who you want to share it with. So click on Manage Sharing, and Start Sharing, and you just type in the email addresses, one per line, of whoever you want to share this with. It should be the same email address that they use to log into their EndNote web account, or their EndNote account that's synced to the full version of the software, whatever. But one thing I've noticed, unless they've changed this recently, the other person doesn't get a notification that they're now sharing that folder with you. So you might want to tell them that now they have access. You can also select whether they have read access only. So if you want them to be able to see your list or use that list when they're writing their paper, that's one thing. If you want them to be collaborators and be able to add or delete references from the group, you give them read and write access. One last thing, you notice that it has manage attachments here. The reference list does let you, using the little paperclip icon, attach a file to each individual reference. So if you want to keep a copy of the PDF of the article there with the item, that's how you attach it. You just go through, it's a standard file upload sort of thing. Just attach files, select the files, and send them in. It was also noted on the sharing page a minute ago that attachments are never shared, and that's a copyright thing. They don't want people to be able to share PDFs with people who shouldn't have access to that without paying for it. So it's nothing I can do about that, but it is something to keep in mind. If you're keeping track of PDFs or papers that are works in progress, this is not the way to go about sharing that. You also can't take a PDF of an article and turn that into a citation. EndNote does not have that capability. The full version is bad at it, but you can try it. But the web version it doesn't have the capacity to read the information from the PDF to do that. Anything else here? All right, so that's getting stuff into EndNote, organizing it within EndNote. Does anybody have any questions about those two concepts before we move on to using it?
So if we get the Cite While You Write installed, then there shouldn't be the two-step process to get the files in, or how do we get the,
Yeah.
because my delivery.ris file from Academic Search Premier isn't working.
Okay, so you're on a Windows machine?
No Mac.
That's the issue. The Mac version doesn't have something like that. So you would have to use the manual process. I'll walk through that again real quick. So in your EndNote account, go to Collect, and then Import References. You choose the file wherever it got downloaded to.
And then still do EndNote import?
No, it's a .ris file. You select the refman RIS option. If you didn't do that earlier, you can either select it from favorites, or if you have the long list, do that.
It still says 0 references were imported into the group.
Let me take a look real quick.
Yeah, it's right here. I can see it over
Okay,
there.
so
There should be two things.
okay. That's weird. Okay. This
redo it?
again might be, yeah, try actually using,
Let's make sure they're there. Yeah, there's two things.
Yeah.
Okay.
okay, select them and choose export.
That's right. Right. Okay.
Yeah, that should be good. There we go.
That works.
No,
Cool.
no idea why the first one didn't, but I'm glad that's working now.
Probably 'cause you were standing there.
Do have a calming effect on technology. All right, so that's that. So again, the downloads feature with the Cite While You Write, that's what you need to get it to talk to Word. Again, the computers in this room should already have that. So if you go ahead and open Word, why isn't it showing up? There should be an EndNote menu option. Does everyone else have it? Anyone not have it?
I don't have it, but a little bubble came up right away that says go to EndNote or insert citations.
Okay, that's Mac interfaces are weird. They're different than, yeah, okay. All right, so if it doesn't show up, I think I usually know where it is. It should be up here at the top. I have no idea why it's disabled on this machine, but there we go. All right. So when you click on the EndNote tab at the top, it should ask you to log in again.
So, excuse me, EndNote Web, you have to be logged in and be online, really, to use it.
To use it, you have to be online. That's another benefit of the full software is that it doesn't require you to be online to use it.
Okay.
But yeah, that is one thing you have to keep in mind. All right, so here I am in my Word document. I'm typing along. Let's actually bump this up a bit. Oop. All right, so you're typing along. You get to a point where you know you need to cite something. What you want to do is put the cursor in the location where you want to cite from. Click on the Insert Citation button. And then the step that is a little counterintuitive is you have to actually tell it what you want to cite. You have to give it some clue, an author name, a keyword, something that will let it identify what you're looking for in your work. So I found an item, and then at the bottom I click Insert. The little down arrow actually gives you options. So if the way you've written the sentence that you're putting the citation in, you've already said the author name, you can choose to exclude the author from the citation. We just click Insert. It drops the citation in the place where the cursor was, and at the bottom of your paper, it will start building a bibliography.
That's cool.
Yep.
I'm here, man.
Yeah. This is the thing that's like really why you want to be using something like EndNote. There are other options out there. So I'm going to do another one real quick.
How do you change the citation style?
I'll get to that in a moment.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, so note that the order I have these, the one starting with the B author name comes after the F. The citation style has sorted them alphabetically automatically. The style window or drop down up at the top here, again, and this is the main thing that having Web of Science does for us, we have a ton of citation styles. Normally, a free account, you usually just get like 21 styles, most of the stuff like MLA and APA and Harvard and all those good things. We have access to lots of individual journal or organizational citation styles. I'm the administrator for the campus account, so I can add additional ones. I can create and add ones that aren't there. So if you're working on something, you're working to publish in a journal that's not listed, let me know. I can either find one that's already been written or mock one up myself. But again, everyone should see that there's a huge list of things here. That's because this list is way too long for Word to handle. You should be able to, under Preferences, oh, wait a minute, maybe it's not Preferences. Where was it? Oh, no, this little corner icon right there. That should have everything. But much like with the list of import options, you can set favorites. If you go back to your EndNote account, go to Format and Bibliography is just where I normally go. There is a Select Favorites option. and you can pick the ones that you use most often. Any changes you make to that sort of thing, though, you have to close out of Word and then re-log in to get it to accept those changes. So I'm going to continue without closing my Word, but if you want to do that yourself, that's fine. Under the Preferences in the EndNote tab, there is also a place for you to save your username and password. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it for these machines because they're public machines, but on your own computer, it's useful just to save it so you don't have to log in every time you open Word. But if you want to change styles, you find the one you want. So let's see, what's a good one? I'm going to go with IEEE. It's a electrical engineering thing. Click OK. Automatically reformats things. This style requires a bracketed number citation in line and to cite things in order, and it's automatically done that. So all of the changes to the bibliography, all the different formatting options that are required for different journals, those are all programmed in. They're only as good as the information that's in your EndNote library. So if there's an error in your library, like an author's name got garbled somehow, you would have to fix that manually. But as far as changing like where things are, it does it all automatically. Yeah.
There is a problem with the spelling or something like that. Can we fix that like in the EndNote piece so that it always works in our documents?
Right.
We have to fix it each time?
If you go back to your EndNote account and you want to edit a specific record, you click on the title of the item, not the author name, and that would let you edit something. So I'm going to screw this one up intentionally. So I'm just going to get rid of that S. Let's say that's what needed to happen. Click Save. Reference is saved. I go back to my Word. I do Update. And why didn't it do that? That's frustrating. It should do that.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah. That's possible, yeah.
So if you have a paper that's written in one citation format and it has to be switched to another.
If you've built the document with Cite While You Write, it's just as easy as switching things in this menu. If you've already got one and everything's been typed in manually, there's no way to take that back to an existing. This is why I tell people that you want to be using this from the beginning of your writing process instead of trying to make it work at the end.
When it's already built, can you just go through and basically like delete the hand type citation and add the EndNote one?
Yes, but it requires you to have all that stuff already in your EndNote account.
You can't upload a Word bibliography into EndNote.
If you've built it using Word's built-in references tool, you might be able to. I have never really tried, but yeah. The problem is that all of the stuff that Cite While You Write plays with is all happening on like the back end. It's in encoded format. So you can't just take a fully formatted bibliography and reverse engineer it. I have found websites that will take like an MLA citation and try to build like an RIS file out of it. The only one I found that did it with any regularity it was just something that somebody had mocked up, but it had a limit on how many you could do in a month. Like it was really weird. I can't find one that's like, here's a service that I can recommend people to use because they're either proprietary or somebody's charging for it, or it's, yeah, it's.
But I noticed in Google Scholar, I never noticed that my files before, and they have all the things I've cited. So.
That's a new feature? Okay.
When the paper comes out,
In the library.
yeah, when the paper comes out.
Right.
I
So
put it-
this is like you have an author profile and it has all the stuff that you've done there.
Well, and then it has all the stuff I've cited. I just realized when you look at my library.
Okay, so that again, my library is a new feature. So if you have that list of everything you've cited, you could just export that like we did everything earlier, and that should work fine.
Pretty cool.
I did not know that their library feature did that.
They changed the same time. Recently, when they allowed you to start marking records, they also auto-populated your iLibrary with anything you've written or cited.
That's cool, because it's like if I have an article and I'm studying the same issues in a book chapter, I want to be able to.
That's good to know. Again, this is like in the last month.
Yeah.
This is a very new feature.
September.
Okay.
Cool.
All right, that's kind of all it is. I mean, it's just you put your thing in where you want it. If I were to add another citation here, Oh, and you can even do like multi-select. So if I want to cite this one, and this one, it'll do that. And it will insert them properly in the right order. It will reorder everything in the bibliography. You can set it to have like a title, like bibliography or works cited or sources or whatever. That's in the preferences, I believe. Apparently, I'm always forgetting where stuff goes. There we go. Under the little arrow icon here, under the style, on layout, you could put in a bibliography title. So we're done a little earlier than I usually am, but I mean, we have this space till 4:30. If people want to play around with getting stuff into a library, or if you have any questions, if anyone have any questions, like right off.
I have a question about the like non-web version.
Okay.
If we use like our Iowa State login that they gave us when we got the version, will it automatically then know all those journal options? Or is there something we have to do to?
When you're dealing with the full version, you can sync it to your web account,
Okay.
and it should save your preferences across both of them. But you have to explicitly link them. Like there is a process, a one-time thing you have to do with the full version to say I want to sync to the cloud or whatever. And I forget exactly where that control is, but it should be fairly easy to find in one of the menus.
Okay. Can you show us how to get one reference in two different folders?
Okay.
Please.
Yep. All right. So if I'm in my references, and let's see. What do I have in my example 1 here? So canine narcolepsy, I have in example 1. If I'm in my all references, let's see if I have this available. Okay, right here. So it's still in the same list with everything else. So I can just add that to group, say new group. All right, so now I have 2 groups here, and it's in both of them, but it shouldn't find that as a duplicate. Actually, it will because I uploaded this thing twice, but if I get rid of that, it should still be in both places.
Cool. Can you share an entire group with another person?
Yeah, well, you can only share groups with people.
Oh, okay.
And I know that the full version, the current version of EndNote, allows you to share your entire library with basically anybody else who has the EndNote software.
Cool.
It could be as long as everybody's using it. Yes?
I have a question about difference between using EndNote versus Mendeley to do the same process.
There are Mendeley and Zotero and EndNote are all sort of the same thing. They all do the same sorts of things. It's a way for you to save bibliography information and then use it in Word or whatever. Specific things that I know that EndNote does not do as well as Mendeley is that Mendeley is very good at, if you have a folder full of PDFs of articles and dragging them onto your Mendeley software, it will build references out of those. It's really good at that, especially compared to EndNote. I think it always requires you to be online. It always has a social component. Mendeley will like share, unless you turn it off, I think, it will share like who's reading what articles. So it's something that you might care about or not. EndNote has that huge list of citation styles. Mendeley has that too, but if there's one that's not there, you can make one yourself, but I'm here as a resource to do that for EndNote for our users. I think that the people who do the Mendeley workshop can help with that somewhat, but it's still something you'd have to then import into your own Mendeley account, because Mendeley is it's an application. It's a free application, but it's not just a website like this is. They do both have Word plugins, and you can have them both installed at the same time. So if you want to like play around with how one handles things versus the other, that's fine too. And if you decide you want to switch from one to the other, you can always export a group. Like if I wanted to take this example thing here, there is an option to somewhere here. Where is it? I do this so infrequently. Export references. So if I go there, I can select which group I want to export and select a style like RIS, and just save that. So I could then I'd have to rename this as exportlist.ris instead of .txt, but I could take that to Mendeley, and Mendeley would also be able to upload that. So if you want to try one out and then decide, oh, there's stuff that I can't do here, you might move to the other one, you can do that. One more thing. Certain citation styles require you to, like some journals require you to abbreviate journal names in citations. The full version of EndNote can do that. It takes a little setup. The web version can't. So if you need to do that, if you know that the citation style you're using will do that, really the only way to do that with the EndNote web is to go into individual references and change the journal title to be the shortened version. That seems really weird to me. I would rather not having to edit that manually, but that's for the free version of EndNote, that's the only way to do shortened titles. Those are the main things, I think. Lori, can you think of anything else? Okay. It's a lot. I've never run into anybody that had problems keeping. I mean, there is a finite limit to the number of citations you can have in your account, but it's in the tens of thousands. It's big, and there's a gigabyte limit for how much attachment space you have. But again, it's fairly high. Unless you have those tens of thousands of references and you're uploading a PDF for every one of them, you're unlikely to hit that cap. If you have the full version of EndNote, you have unlimited storage on the cloud. We have what I would say, so this one knows that it came from EBSCO, and there's a go to record link. So that would take you right to that item's record here. You can also always try the Get It at ISU link. That's something that we add to a lot of websites that are linked from the library website. And that is a separate pull to our system that sees do we have this in full text somewhere. This one apparently from whatever didn't, but this one. If you're not on a university computer, it should, actually that's a good question. I don't know if that requires you to be signed in through our proxy or not. It does? Okay. So if you've signed in through the library website, it probably should, but other than that, yeah, being on campus. Because it only shows up if the system recognizes that, oh, you're coming from this campus's network IP addresses. Any other general questions, or if people want to just play around with things? Yeah?
Do we have a VPN you can sign into so it'll see you as on campus?
There is a campus VPN. I have not tried using it with EndNote Web, so I don't know if it plays well. I know there are some library resources that don't play with the VPN well, but I can't imagine this is necessarily one that wouldn't. But I don't have the information for how to do that off the top of my head. It's the only one that I'm aware of that has a supported plugin. I know that, I want to say that the full version of EndNote had or has the option to plug into Pages. I think that's what the Apple thing's called. But the web version doesn't. And that's kind of on, I don't know whose end that is, like if the EndNote people would have to write it, or if Apple would have to write it, or Microsoft would have to write it. Like it's that sort of plugin is weird. I wish that more options had it, but as far as I know, it's just Word. And yeah, no, right, Pages wouldn't. Yeah. Does anyone use or heard of LaTeX? LaTeX, yeah. It's so do you use that already? No. Okay. Okay. There is a separate the BibTeX format that you need. You can, the thing that I did to export this list, there is an option to do the BibTeX format for that, so you can still use EndNote and that. It's just it's not as automatic as Cite While You Write is for Word. All right, well, I'm still going to hang around until 4:30 or until everybody leaves. So if people want to continue playing around, I'll help out. But other than that, I'll go ahead and shut down the presentation stuff.